Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Ok Xoomer. I'm your host, Aaron Lichtig, Xometry guy and former Jeopardy champion. I'm excited this week, too, about the Jeopardy Tournament of Champions, which kicked off yesterday. But even more excited to be here with Spencer Wright. Now, Spencer is the founder and the editor-in-chief of The Prepared. And The Prepared is a newsletter and community that's centered on manufacturing, engineering, and infrastructure. And full disclosure, Xometry is a sponsor of The Prepared. We have been for a couple of quarters now. And we are super excited to be in that role, but also to be here today chatting with Spencer. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, thanks, Aaron.
All right, so first of all, tell us about The Prepared.
Yes, The Prepared is mostly it's a weekly newsletter, comes out on Mondays that kind of centers around the built environment, right? Things that are physical and made. It's been around for about 7.5 years. Primarily it is a Monday newsletter that just kind of has a list of links, partly newsy a little bit, but then mostly focusing on kind of things that you wouldn't otherwise come across that have to do with engineering and manufacturing infrastructure.
Now, what motivated you to start The Prepared?
Yeah, so 7.5 years ago, I had quit a job that was I was kind of a product and production manager for a company building high-end windows and doors in the east end of Long Island. I'm not a trained engineer, but I had kind of faked my way into a career being one, where I was doing sourcing of machined components, extruded components, a variety of other things, and I was kind of responsible for engineering and delivering this fairly complex set of robot doors for a celebrity summer house in the Hamptons, which is where I'm from. It was a super interesting experience. I learned a ton. I was outside of my kind of comfort zone for a lot of it, which was really interesting. And through a series of events, I ended up leaving the job and moving into Brooklyn without kind of a great idea of what I was going to do with myself. I had kind of grown up in the construction industry and had turned myself into this person who could do, sourcing and production management and a pretty good deal of, 3D design and engineering by the seat of my pants. But kind of realized that I was gonna reach my limit there at some point. And for some reason, I thought that a good thing to do would be to write a newsletter where I kind of learned about the world that I was from, and also kind of the world that I was exploring, kind of more kind of stuff about kind of software and kind of proper product management in the kind of digital sense, right? The Prepared began as a thing that nobody read. The first couple of issues went to 0 people, and I just, for some reason, kept on doing it. And there's something about an email that you're ending up in people's inboxes with their notes from their moms, and it ended up just developing all these personal relationships and providing me with a ton of positive feedback. And so it always kind of made sense to continue to invest in it and to make it bigger. And so it was a side job for about 6 years while I did other kind of interesting things, and then became my full-time job a little bit over a year ago, right before the pandemic.
Gotcha. Is there anything new coming up for The Prepared on the newsletter or website that we should look out for?
Yeah, so for I guess about 7 years, The Prepared was really the main thing that it did was a Monday newsletter that was just this kind of list of links, which is still the core of what it does. However, started kind of experimenting with other cadences as well, and I think that The Prepared kind of predates the current newsletter boom, the rise of Substack, and we're not on Substack, we're on MailChimp, we have a whole other kind of infrastructure stack. which predates that whole world. But there is something about it, about kind of that, the advent of newsletters as, journalism, but kind of more dedicated commentary, that I think that Prepared has to learn from a little bit. And so we started doing a little bit more kind of original writing about the built environment, construction and manufacturing and physical engineering, and are thinking a little bit more consciously about how we can help kind of lead the conversation in those spaces, as opposed to just kind of rounding up things that other people are doing.
So, what are some of those topics that you are very interested in within the broader field of manufacturing and engineering?
Yeah, so I mean, one of the things that I'm super curious about how things fail, right? And how, like, um and, you could say that a lot of what the Prepared has become is just my own exploration of of my own career, and like of the things that I've done that, kind of have to a small extent worked, and then also have not worked. um when the Prepared started, it was kind of the middle of the 3D printing boom, right? The kind of consumer 3D printing boom. So MakerBot had, I think, just gotten acquired. Shapeways was a really big deal here in New York.
Yeah.
And, you know, neither of those companies are failures, right? They continue. I mean, Shapeways is now publicly traded, I think. They had a SPAC
Yeah, they
recently,
had us back just a couple weeks ago.
right? Yeah, and, MakerBot continues to produce what seem to be kind of high quality printers. But the promise of the consumer 3D printing era kind of didn't materialize, right? I mean, it's, it there, and I think maybe this is a result of just the hype that the kind of popular tech press brought to this field, right? I mean,
Mhm.
I like comparing consumer 3D printers to sewing machines, right? Sewing machines have been around for a long time, and, they're like highly successful products in a certain sense. However, most clothes are not made at home by people with consumer grade sewing machines, right? Most clothes are made in low wage locations in Southeast Asia, right? Realistically, right?
Yeah.
Um, and I think that ultimately the consumer 3D printing world, it took a long time for a lot of those companies to learn that lesson, that, the vast majority of manufactured goods are still made via a pretty similar supply chain as they always have been, right? Through mid to large size manufacturing operations that, can handle quality certification. They are, 9001 certified or whatever it is, right? um, and consumer 3D printers are or they can be very fun, but they're not really designed for making end use products for the most part, right? And so I think that kind of exploring those things, and the factors that allowed us as a society, and I place myself in that group, right, to be a little bit, yeah, to maybe not understand the real impact of something like FDM, at home desktop 3D printing. um that's the kind of thing that I really like exploring, and kind of learning about and explaining to the audience.
Cool. Now, where do you think 3D printing is headed over the next 3, 4, 5 years?
My analogy is always PCC, Precision Cast Parts Corporation.
Mhm.
Um, PCC, I think it's still the largest acquisition that Berkshire Hathaway's ever made, right? They're an enormously important company in aviation and turbomachinery, right? They make these precision cast parts, as you would imagine, right? And they're flight critical for every airplane that you go on. Incredibly important company, and nobody knows about them, kind of. I mean, you probably know about them, right? And a lot of your listeners probably know about them. But if you walk up to somebody on the street and ask them about precision cast parts, they have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I actually like the idea that, high value 3D printing goes in that direction as well,
Mhm.
where it is incredibly important, and it's used on flight critical components in industries that matter to people, to regular people. But it's kind of also flying below the radar a little bit. It doesn't have to be sexy in order to be hugely valuable and meaningful to society, I think. And I mean, there's nothing wrong with people knowing about 3D printing. I like, in a way, like, it's great that it inspired a generation of tinkerers and engineers. But I would rather that these technologies matter than that they're popular, right?
Mhm. Gotcha. All right. Well, Spencer, thank you so much for joining today. And everyone should check out the Prepared. Join the newsletter, sign up. I've been on it for a couple of years now and have learned a lot from it. And yes, you will see some Xometry branding on there as well. But it is well worth your time, well worth the read. Spencer, thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Aaron.
All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll be back in another couple days with another episode of OK Zoomer. Stay safe and stay healthy, everyone.